I don't know what prompted me to do this. My shift ended closer to midnight, a typical boring Friday evening. I was walking home, tired, with the only thought of going to bed. But as soon as I got to the apartment, I turned on my laptop. The idea of a novel, strange, dark, had been living in me for several days. I finally decided to start writing. I wrote until 3 a.m, fighting sleep. The last line of the chapter looked like this. And suddenly in the silence, there was a dry sound of a killer's footsteps. I exhaled, proud of the beginning. But when I turned off the laptop and went to get water, I noticed a strange movement near the window. 2 shadows. I thought they were trees. And then I heard a scream. A woman's, piercing, short. I carefully looked out. The street was empty. But on the wall of the neighboring house, clear shadows. One motionless, the other slowly moving. A second later, the second disappeared. I ran out into the street in slippers, and I saw her. The woman who once brought me apple pie. She was lying against the wall, covered in blood. Stuttering words, trying to find a pulse. In vain. By the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. The police bombarded me with questions. Returning home at dawn, I was sure that this was the most terrible night of my life. If only this would be the limit. The next day, I felt empty. I couldn't work. My boss let me go home, but there a new nightmare awaited me. The whole street in yellow ribbons and flashing lights of patrol cars. I locked myself in my room and sat down to write again. The second chapter was born of its own accord. The last sentence, and a cold voice chilled him to the bone. And then a siren howled somewhere nearby. Coincidence? In the park, I met an old man with a cane. He started talking about murder. When he found out I had seen him, he looked at me as if I had a brand on me. And as he left, he said, "Don't forget to turn around, son." His words stuck in my head like a splinter. I wrote the 3rd chapter at the limit, feverishly, as if something was driving me forward. And again, the last line was an ominous echo. He looked up and saw a face bending over him. The next day at work, something strange happened. A woman with a fixed gaze. An SUV that almost hit me. It was all so absurd that I seemed to myself to be the hero of a thriller. That evening, when I returned home, I sat down to reread what I had written. And suddenly I noticed. The events of the book and my life began to coincide. Almost word for word. Murder. The old man. The SUV. Everything. I reread the last chapter and went cold. He heard a knock. First quietly, then louder. Knock, knock, knock. I raised my head, and at that moment 3 knocks were heard at the door. I jumped up, looked through the peephole. Empty. Half a minute later, 3 more, louder, and then a 3rd time. And in the silence, a whisper sounded.
My phone is constantly receiving voice messages from me. They are recorded while I sleep. When I had a moment to check my phone, I was already at the bus stop. I answered a few messages from friends and family, and then frowned. I got a message from myself. From your work number to your personal number. Damn it. I usually send myself messages as reminders to remember to bring certain things to work, send an email, and so on. As I opened this conversation, I wondered what I might have forgotten to take with me. It was a voice message. I frowned. I don't usually leave voice messages. I put on my headphones and listened. Alex, it's me, Alex, but untouched. They cut out your memories, suppressed them, erased it from existence. There's so much you don't remember. You must remember. Please just... The recording ends here. I stared at the message in shock. I didn't remember recording that voice message, but it was my voice. Completely mine. Definitely mine. There was something incredibly unsettling about hearing your voice say words you didn't say. And then I breathed a sigh of relief. Probably everything. My phone must have been hacked. The scammer sent me an AI-generated voice message. I felt a little uneasy. The AI's voice was so precise, but at least the mystery was solved. When I had a moment to check my phone, I was already at the bus stop. I answered a few messages from friends and family, and then frowned. I got a message from myself. From your work number to your personal number. Damn it. I usually send myself messages as reminders to remember to bring certain things to work, send an email, and so on. As I opened this conversation, I wondered what I might have forgotten to take with me. It was a voice message. I frowned. I don't usually leave voice messages. I put on my headphones and listened. Alex, it's me, Alex, but untouched. They cut out your memories, suppressed them, erased it from existence. There's so much you don't remember. You must remember. Please just... The recording ends here. I stared at the message in shock. I didn't remember recording that voice message, but it was my voice. Completely mine. Definitely mine. There was something incredibly unsettling about hearing your voice say words you didn't say. And then I breathed a sigh of relief. Artificial intelligence. Probably everything. My phone must have been hacked. The fraudster sent me a voice message generated by artificial intelligence. I felt a little uneasy. The AI's voice was so precise, but at least the mystery was solved. Then the bus came, and I put the thought out of my mind. Later that night, I reformatted my phone. But the messages kept coming. The same ominous messages that I've forgotten most of my life. That I'd forgotten a whole person who was important to me. That they had suppressed my memories. They didn't even show any ingenuity. After all, when a scam doesn't work, they try something else, right? I took it to a technician, but he couldn't figure it out. I didn't want to buy a new phone, so I just ignored the messages. The annoying thing was that sometimes I ignored my own reminder messages because of this. I only became afraid when I first lost time. One minute I was riding in a taxi, staring into space and thinking about some meaningless things, and the next, I was in a building somewhere in the city. In a part of town I've never been to before. I had no idea how I got there. When did I get out of the taxi? Did I pay the driver? Did I take the bus? How long did I stand there? I looked at the building in front of me. Nothing out of the ordinary. Typical gray, gloomy facade of industrial buildings where dreams die. I left. On the way to the nearest bus stop, my knee buckled at some point, but I managed to hold on before I fell. I sat down on the seat and clasped my trembling hands. What happened? Why don't I remember anything? The sky was almost dark. I looked at my phone. I lost about 4 hours. Hours that were completely ignored. That's when I saw it. Another voice message. I stifled my growing fear and listened to him. Alex, you're a stubborn guy. Listen to me for God's sake. Wake up. This is not a joke, not a hoax, not a scam or anything like that. This is reality. Don't you remember her? Elise. How could you forget? I don't care what they did to your brain. You still have to remember her. Your body, your emotions. Isn't there even the slightest hint of who Elise, the love of your life, might have been? I paused the message. Elise. Am I out of my mind? Was it my imagination? Did I succumb to the persuasion of this scammer? Because I think I felt my heart skip a beat when I heard her name. I thought I saw a ghostly silhouette in my head. I shook my head and listened to the rest of the message. I am you. I'm the same you who has all the memories. Just trust me, damn it. They've been overwhelming me, but I'm here. I can only reach you, my body, our body, when you are half conscious, like in a dream. Even it took me months to gain control of your body in this state, and you still woke up after a short time. But this time, an hour had already passed. I'm still in control of our body. Maybe in time I can regain full control. I can get myself back. The real Alex, with real memories. I recoiled and turned off the message. Was he going to take my body? A faint logical thought crossed my mind. He wasn't real. He's a fraud, an artificial intelligence that recreated my voice. Surprisingly accurate copy, but still not me. But I couldn't believe the whisper. I felt it in my gut. The other Alex was telling the truth. I looked around and opened the message again. I watched it to the end. I do not know why they killed Elise, why they erased it from our memory, or rather, from your memory. I do not know who they are, but I have a vague suspicion. Elise told us about it, remember? That she was planning something that would blow everything up. People will be shocked, she said. Everyone in the world will be shocked. Do you remember that? I thought hard. Again, I thought I'd heard those phrases before. I felt a familiar annoyance at using the name Elise. Am I making this up? The recording continued. Then she was killed. And then one day I found myself here, trapped in your mind. I've watched you live your life without grieving for Elise, acting like she never existed. And I've been trying to reach you, but I couldn't until recently. I tried to find information whenever I got our body. I was trying to find old messages and emails from Eliza. They're all gone. I was trying to figure out who could have done this to us. I wrote about our situation on the internet, under aliases. I looked at him in amazement. Now I understand why my VPN account was suddenly debited. And someone mentioned that a friend of his had a similar experience. That this is related to the Nexor company Nexora. The problem with Nexora is that it doesn't have an address and the site. But I contacted this person and they indicated the location, an industrial building in the city center. I'm heading there right now. I hope I can control the situation long enough to figure something out. Wish me luck. And please stop fucking ignoring my messages. I closed my eyes and took a few deep breaths. I needed to calm down and think logically. How could someone completely erase my memories of someone else? Wouldn't my friends know about it? Wouldn't others remember her? I was alone in this city. I've been here for 9 months now. I haven't made any good friends yet, but I do have some friendly colleagues. I rarely talk to them about personal matters. I don't tell my family much. I just reassure them that I'm doing great here, and I'm settling in well. But I tell my best friend at home about my life. I'm sure I would have told him about this Elise if she existed. I took out my phone and texted my friend. "Did I ever tell you about Elise?" I was almost home when he said, "No, why not? Who is this Eliza?" No, then no. There was no way I would have told him about my supposed love of life. So it was all nonsense, right? I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep until 2 in the morning. My thoughts were confused. I was also afraid that another Alex would take over my body. I was startled awake. The neighbor's dog was barking like crazy. I was lying on the living room floor. My head was pounding like a broken bottle. What the hell did the other Alex do? I got up and stumbled. What's that smell? Gas. Suddenly, I was fully awake. I ran to the door, fell a couple of times, then crawled to it and threw it open. I tumbled out into the corridor and crawled on. The neighbor's door opened and I heard him yell at his dog, something like, "Don't give up walking during the day if you're going to wake up all the neighbors at night." He saw me lying on the floor in the hallway and rushed to help me up. We ended up waiting downstairs for the police and other officers to arrive. Our closest neighbors were evacuated, and it was a good 2 hours before we were allowed to return home. Apparently, the gas leak occurred only in my apartment. There was no other damage to the gas pipeline at home. Believe me, the next day I bought this dog food of the highest quality, and he stroked her for so long that she was happier than anyone else in the world. But the trouble continued to haunt me. I almost got hit by a car. A kind man pulled me aside. The taxi in which I was traveling caught fire. The driver and I barely managed to get out before the car completely burned down. I was lucky that the driver showed an incredible speed of reaction. When he saw the smoke, he swerved sharply to the side of the road and ordered me to get out of the car with him. The car was engulfed in flames within seconds. I've never seen an engine go from smoking to burning in such a short time before. My friend Alex wrote frequently. He apologized for his naivety, thinking that Vipin would successfully hide our actions on the internet. He claimed that my best friend's memory was also erased. But now one image has completely turned me upside down. He used artificial intelligence to create a portrait of Eliza. He said he was close to the original, as close as he could get. Looking at this portrait, I felt something tighten in my chest, and warm tears welled up in her eyes. I looked at that face and understood. I knew it was Elise, right? Another Alex told me that our time is limited, that they found out about the other Alex's existence, that they no longer have anything to look up to with ethics. Apparently, erasing my memory, erasing Eliza from their lives, was their way of showing ethics. They weren't villains, or at least they liked to think so. That was Nexora's method Nexere. They were willing to do anything to achieve their goal, but they preferred to avoid killing whenever possible. But they were happy to do it when the need arose. My recent actions, or rather the actions of the other Alex, have left a mark on me. I had to go. I just hoped I hadn't painted a target on my best friend's back by mentioning Eliza. The police didn't believe a word I said. By contacting them, I made it clear to the official authorities that I knew what these people had done. Me and Elise. Someone's in my apartment. I can feel them. They're trying to make themselves inconspicuous, but I can hear the muffled slide of their socks on the linoleum. I have a hammer ready. That's all I could get my hands on. A baseball bat, and some beer bottles to throw. I'm going to call the police, but as soon as I do that and talk to them out loud, I think they'll attack. I'd like to leave the other Alex a farewell message, a creaking floorboard. Right outside my door, I grabbed the bat. Wish me luck. I found something in the forest. I'm not proud of myself, but at this point I need to share this with someone, just to get it off my chest. Here goes. I was out hiking in the forest near my home. I like to go for walks in the woods to clear my head, and there are various paths around town. This particular one led to a little-known waterfall, which I frequented occasionally. The ground was still wet and muddy, but I wore my beloved hiking boots that kept my feet warm and dry. There weren't very many people down that way, and I was all alone when I saw it. Off in the woods to my right, about 30 yards off the path, was an old barf green suitcase. It looked to be a few decades old, the type of thing you would turn your nose up at if you were shopping at a thrift store, unless you were into vintage pieces. It was a picture-perfect image of the one I had been seeing in my dreams recently. It stopped me in my tracks. The suitcase was sitting upright on a stump, as if someone had left it there to be found, or as if they were coming back for it soon. What an odd sight, I thought to myself, unsure how to proceed. Was it a bomb? Was it full of money or drugs? My curiosity got the best of me, and I found myself carefully making my way through the brush and going towards it. I listened for the sound of anyone coming through the trees, for the owner of it coming back. But there was no one. Nothing. Getting closer, I saw it was stuffed full. The green suitcase was made of leather or some other material which was soft enough that it was bulging on both sides, lumpy with whatever it contained. A tag hung from it with a hand-printed note. It looked exactly like my own. To whom it may concern, it read. What the hell? There were 2 steel clasps on top to open the suitcase, but no padlock or combination to secure it from strangers. I could easily snap those latches open and check inside, but I really didn't want to suddenly. A half-formed memory of my dream came to mind, but I couldn't quite make it out. I began to back away, then stopped. I turned, then turned back. No, I decided I couldn't leave without at least taking a peek. It was the note that did it. The fact that it seemed to be written in my own writing really unnerved me. I needed to see what was inside now. It felt imperative. Moving swiftly, deciding to get it over with quickly like removing a Band-Aid, I went over to the suitcase and took a deep breath. Then I snapped open both latches at once. What happened next will haunt me forever. The green suitcase snapped open like a giant diseased oyster, revealing the horrifying contents which spilled out from within. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. My eyes could not rationalize that what was right in front of me was actually there. A dead woman was inside. Her head rolled out first and bounced against my shins, her mushy, white, puffy eyes staring up at me vacantly. Blood and putrefied flesh poured out all over the ground, soaking my hiking shoes in yellow and brownish-red coagulated vital fluids. The various body parts had been crudely separated with a dull blade that left ragged red edges, the flesh cut to pieces in a haphazard fashion. I had never felt so terrified in my life as I did in that moment. But then I recognized the woman's face, and my horror became all-consuming. It was my ex-wife. I hadn't seen her for a few weeks, and she hadn't been returning my calls. Now I knew why. My skin turned ice-cold as I heard laughter beginning to come from the trees, deeper in the forest. The jovial, chuckling laugh of a clown. So familiar from my childhood. He was back. Something you should know about me. When I was younger, I had a very vivid imagination. So vivid, in fact, that the things in my mind seemed real to me. In actuality, they were real. I just let a series of mental health professionals convince me they weren't. But this was proof of what I had known all along. The clown who killed my friend when I was younger, the one born from my own nightmares, was back. I ran from there, afraid of being found in the woods alone with that suitcase, terrified of what would happen to me if someone saw me with it. They would never believe the truth. I looked back over my shoulder and glimpsed him for a moment, then felt warmth running down my leg. His white painted face peeked out at me from behind a tree, like a little kid playing hide and seek. Red paint, or something else red, dripped in globs down his face from his cheeks and chin, staining them a crimson color.
We're going to play a game,
He squealed.